This week we're going to read a double Torah portion, Matos and Masa, which means that after many months since Pesach, Israel and the diaspora will be once again reading a Torah portion. And one of the stories in the Parsha of Matos this week relates to the land of Israel. The story is that when the Jews were about to cross over into the land of Israel, two tribes came to Moshe Rabbeinu, to be more precise, 2.5 tribes, but Gad and Reuven, and they said, you know, Moshe, we have a lot of flock, we have a lot of cattle, and we would prefer not to go into the land of Israel. We prefer to receive our inheritance on the east bank of the Jordan. And Moshe Rabbeinu gets upset with them, and he says, are your brothers going to go to battle and you're going to remain behind and not shoulder the burden of conquering the land of Israel? And so they strike an agreement, and the agreement is, they say to Moshe, we will go over and fight the wars to conquer the land of Israel, and after the Jewish people settle in the land of Israel, we'll cross back over to the east bank of the Jordan, and we will get our inheritance on the east bank of the Jordan. And the story is fascinating because of the sin of the spies who didn't want to enter into the land of Israel. And here we have almost a repeat story where two tribes say, you know, Israel's a nice place, but we'd rather stay here stock for our cattle. How could they put their animals and the grazing of their animals before the inheritance of the land of Israel? And why does Moshe Rabbeinu agree that as long as you fight the wars and conquer the land, and you don't weaken the morale of the people by not fighting alongside them, then you can go back and live on the east bank of the Jordan? What about the fact that God was so upset that the Jews didn't want to take the promised land, the gift that He promised them? And here we have something quite fascinating. Every story in the Torah, sometimes we have to know the subplot behind the story. And when we read the story in this parsha, we don't understand it. We only get to understand it at the end of the Torah. What do we find at the end of the Torah? The last Torah portion, V'zot HaBracha, Moshe Rabbeinu blesses the tribes of Israel. And when he comes to the tribe of Gad, this is what he says. He says, God is very blessed. And then he goes on to say, Vayar Reishis Lo. God took the first portion of the inheritance of the land of Israel, because they took it on the east bank of the Jordan. They didn't even wait to go into the land of Israel. They were the first to receive their territory, their land. Why did they do that? Moshe says it very clearly. Kisham chelkas b'chokek safan. Because there is where the lawgiver's burial plot is hidden. What is Moshe Rabbeinu saying? We know that we don't know the burial place of Moshe till this very day, because God didn't want us to deify him and enshrine his burial plot. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, I know why they wanted to stay on the east bank of the Jordan. It wasn't about their cattle. They wanted to be close to their teacher, to Moshe Rabbeinu. They said, how could we go into the land of Israel and leave Moshe Rabbeinu, our beloved lawgiver, buried on the east bank of the Jordan, abandoned, without any community present around him? We want to stay here behind. We'll sacrifice going into the land of Israel to remain with our Rabbi, with our teacher. And Moshe Rabbeinu says it very clearly. They took the first inheritance because they wanted to remain where their lawgiver was hidden. And the Hasidic masters take it a step further. They say the word mikne rav can mean abundant cattle, but mikne rav is a teacher. Mikne can mean acquisition, a connection, a bond. They had a deep bond and acquisition and connection to their rav, to their teacher. And here we have a very stirring and moving deeper interpretation, that it wasn't about the cattle. They weren't being straightforward with Moshe. They couldn't go to Moshe and say, Moshe, you're going to die here. We don't want you to be alone here. So they came in and said it's about the cattle. What they really was saying, and Moshe got it, and that's why he understood it and agreed that they should go back, that they did not want to abandon the resting place of their beloved teacher Moshe Rabbeinu. Their motives were very noble. And I think this is a very powerful lesson. Sometimes we don't understand the underlying drive of a person. And we could also be inspired by them to learn the lesson that we should be willing to sacrifice for our beloved ancestors. And when you go to Israel, that's what you see. I just came back from Israel. You see the sacrifice to be connected to our ancestors. And the place you see it most is in the city of Hebron. There are 800 Jews, residents, that live in Hebron. Why do they live there in such a hostile area? They live in such a hostile area because they want to be next to the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, but not Rachel. Rachel is by the tomb of Rachel. And when we go to Israel, we go visit our grandparents, we visit our ancestors. But those 800 Jews, and there's hundreds of Jews on waiting lists who want to get in, but the Israeli government won't let them in because they're fearful of the situation with the Arabs all around them. But these 800 Jews, and when you visit there, you see the hardships they live in. Wherever they walk, there's protection from the Israeli army because it's so dangerous to live there. And the one who took my family and I and a tour guide, his name is Simcha Hachberg, he made Aliyah. Now a lot of people make Aliyah to Ranana or to Yerushalayim. You know, as someone said to me yesterday, I'm not missing anything. Everything I had in New Jersey, I have in Ranana and in Jerusalem. But to go, he went from Brooklyn, an American, direct to Hebron. And he's been there ever since and taking people around Hebron to show them. Why? Because he said, I want to be next to the patriarchs and the matriarchs. I get up every day and I go daven Shachris. I don't just say, V'zocher chaz de'avos, Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchak Yaakov. I don't just remember Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I'm in the presence of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I'm with them, just like the God of Reuven wanted to be in the presence of Moshe Rabbeinu. And what I took away from this is, a famous philosopher once said, if you have a why, you could overcome any what. And you look at these people and you say, how do they live in Hebron, the tiny little place? There's 3 stores. You can't go anywhere because there's Arabs all around you. You need a bulletproof vehicle, bus, or car to go in and out. And they live there with their families and their grandchildren. And the reason is if you have a strong enough why, you want to be attached to the patriarchs, to the matriarchs, to your ancestors, to your Jewish history, to your Jewish identity, you could overcome every what. But the truth is that we don't only connect with them when we're physically in a Hebron. We could be spiritually in a Hebron. Every time we perpetuate and carry on the traits, the values, the teachings, and emulate the conduct of our patriarchs and matriarchs, and then they live with us wherever we may be, whether in Hebron or here in Palm Beach.